see the faith community is out here in full force today. And that's because we want to say that Trump, the administration's ban on refugees and visitors and immigrants from Muslim-majority countries is immoral and un-American. It's rooted in sin, not insecurity. As faith leaders, we condemn slamming the door on refugees who come here fleeing war, chaos, and death. We believe religious liberty is the cornerstone of our nation's identity and democracy. We therefore condemn blanket travel bans for Muslim-majority nations. We know that this new policy is nothing more than the old Muslim ban in sheep's clothing. The gospel says that what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart. And when Donald Trump called for a complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States, I believe he meant it. Today, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, and Sikh leaders behind me, we all pledge to fight this new ban of our brothers and sisters until it is permanently undone. And I assure you, we mean it. We mean it because we take seriously the lessons and commands of Scripture. As a fellow Christian, I remind President Trump that Jesus himself was the Middle Eastern refugee who taught us to love our neighbor as ourselves. By banning refugees, Trump bans Jesus himself. The president must not only rescind this order, he must repent. And I am proud to stand here today with leaders of many faiths. We stand here united in our belief in religious liberty and dignity and equality of all people. Singling out Muslims of any entire group or any entire group for discrimination because of how they pray violates our shared beliefs. The majority of our nation's refugee settlement groups in the country are faith-based, and we welcome refugee families face-to-face in our churches, mosques, synagogues, and temples. We will continue this work because we have no other moral choice. We're not backing down, Mr. President, and I assure you, we mean it. I'd now like to call on Imam Talib Sharif, who is Imam and President of Masjid Muhammad Mosque. Imam.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone, and we certainly thank you for being here, and it's certainly an honor to stand with my brothers and sisters in faith, the diversity of faith, the diversity of ethnicity, the diversity of nationality, etc. We're very pleased to hear. Again, as you mentioned, I'm the president and the law called the Nation's Mosque. It's street which renamed Islamic Way. It's been here in the nation's capital for 80 years, and this particular year is the 80th anniversary of that community in the nation's capital here in Washington, D.C. I'm also the president of the Interfaith Conference, which is the oldest interfaith group that brings together Muslims, Christians, and Jews in America, and that started right here in Washington, D.C., and our organization was the first Muslim organization a part of that. I'm also the vice commander, and I'm also the imam and chaplain of the national organization called Muslim American Veterans Association that was organized right here in America. It is the oldest Muslim veterans organization, which tells us that there are a lot of veterans that have served. In fact, veterans have been serving from the beginning of this nation with every particular war. So I'm recently retired from the United States Air Force. I served for 30 years. My life has really been postured, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice, but it wasn't God's will. But I was postured to do that upon the highest principles and highest values upon which our nation was founded. We know our nation has a motto, E pluribus unum. And we highlight that. Out of any one, we are a nation, and we've been that. We are a country made up of people from every land, and we've been that. We say one nation, one God, one humanity. And we have a foundation that's upon those principles. And these are the highest principles and the highest aspirations and the highest expressions of human life. And we said that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal and endowed by their creator in certain rights, with certain rights among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'm like the majority of Muslim Americans and the majority of Americans in general who take serious the obligation and the responsibility of citizenship. We're very concerned about our national security as well. While we welcome improved vetting, we believe this essentially reworded and modified version of the previous ban remains upon his openly stated intentions to discriminate, to reject on the basis of concerned citizens still stands that because the harm of this action, it far outweighs the benefits, that it is not in the best interest of our national security as attested by the evidence. That it says no Syrian refugee or any of the banned identified countries that were previously admitted pose a threat to our nation. And this is from our government offices. This ban 2.0, it is not reflected of what's on the Statute of Liberty. And we know it reads, in that Supreme Court. He's honored as a prominent lawmaker. And I like to say that Prophet Muhammad himself, he was a refugee, and he was welcomed by a Christian nation and then followed by others. So we thank you for being with us, and we conclude with, we'll say that we are one nation under God. Faith has been high in our nation, indivisible with liberty and justice for all men and women in humanity.
Thank you so much. As you can see today, we're out in force opposing Trump's new executive order targeting Muslim-majority countries and refugees. I'd now like to call to the stand Wael Al-Zaat, the Chief Executive Officer of Emerge USA.
Hello, everyone. Till January 20th, for the past decade, I've been a State Department official working on very challenging and sensitive Middle East policy, including the question of refugees, how to vet them, but also counterterrorism and how best to defeat organizations such as ISIL and Al-Qaeda. I've served in Baghdad. I've served on the Iraq Civil War. And many Americans, Muslims, Arabs, and South Asians have done the same country. As a first generation Syrian Muslim, this executive would not allow people like me to be here. It would not allow hundreds of thousands of people like me who have traveled to this country and made it their home and worked to defend it. The Ninth Circuit Court focused in its decision on the legislative intent. When we look at the question of intent with this Muslim ban 2.0, we have to look at not only what the president is saying today, but what he's been saying for months and years. Although the president claims that it's meant to protect our country, it simply does not, will not, and in fact I fear will make us less safe. Refugee immigrants from the Muslim world, as you all know, as I know because I've worked on it for years, go through extensive, brutal vetting that sometimes keeps them away for years at refugee camps where they're admitted. We should address the question of security based on evidence. A recent Department of Homeland Security study or report upended the very premises of the administration's travel ban. It said that immigrants from the countries that are designated were unlikely to engage in terrorist activities based on their country of origin. There's no correlation. The measures that are being proposed yet again, minus one country, Iraq, are not meant to save us or protect us. Then what is the actual purpose? I believe that by limiting the number of Muslims who can legally enter the United States, we're not speaking about illegal immigration here. The administration is de facto stripping American Muslims of their rights as equal citizens by making it legal to discriminate against their co-religionists, other Muslims abroad. It's basically telling me that if I have a friend as an American or a relative who's abroad, who's not an American, they cannot come and visit me. They cannot come here one day and work. I cannot marry somebody from abroad who does not have a religion aside from Christianity, Judaism, or anything that the president perhaps finds more tolerable. This is the real problem here. When it combined with rumored legislation combined with the language one country, I think I under Democratic and Republican administrations, my organization heard say, since we engage so actively in increasing the political participation of Muslims, we could be targeted as part of this broader campaign. Thank you.
I'd now like to call on Rabbi Jason Kimmelman Block with Ben Ark, Jewish Action.
Friends, let's face it, we have a national security and public safety crisis, and we must act. We are witnessing violent attacks on innocent people across the country. The past weekend, a sick man was shot in his driveway after being told to get back to his country. We saw the murder of Rameez Abid, who's originally from India and was killed in Kansas by a gunman shouting, "Get out of my country," and other racial slurs or opening fire. Our true public safety and national security crisis is not the crisis that our president is touting. Our public safety crisis is that racism, bigotry, and xenophobia are being peddled at the highest levels of our government, which gives its license for acts of hateful violence against innocent people and the most vulnerable communities in our country. Our national security crisis is that a white nationalist, Mr. Steve Bannon, sits on the National Security Council and has the president's ear. Today's revised executive order is a distinction without a difference. Threatening, banning people based on their religious beliefs, national origins, remains fundamentally unjust and un-American. It cuts to the heart of who we are as a country, the very values upon which we were founded. We cannot let desperate politicians and would-be autocrats betray those core values. Speaking as a Jewish American, the grandson of people who fled Europe, determined to enter this country by any means available, this immoral targeting of Muslims and immigrants chills me to the bone. We are in solidarity with our Muslim friends, neighbors, family members, and all who are threatened by these hateful actions. We will fight together for what is right, and we will win. It is precisely in times such as these that we discover who we are as people, as a society, and as a nation. When we determine the values that we aren't just comfortable speaking, but the values we are willing to act upon. This president continues to follow the classic playbook of demagogues, scapegoating immigrants. We have seen this before over and over again. The soldiers defend these actions, the party-loyal politicians, the political prognosticators who discuss them as if they are normal, and those who retreat into the convenience of being overwhelmed or remaining silent, all bear responsibility for enabling this evil to flourish. We call upon political leaders, every political spectrum, to speak out against President Trump's actions and take steps to protect those who are most vulnerable and most threatened by the cruelty of this administration. Thank you.
Next, I call on Melanie Nezer, the Vice President for Policy and Advocacy of HIAS for the refugees.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming out. My name is Melanie Nezer. I work for HIAS. We're one of the 9 national refugee resettlement agencies. Most of us are faith-based. HIAS is the global Jewish organization. Thank you. And we have evangelical, Lutherans, many others, humanitarian groups resettling refugees in this country in partnership with the government. And I'll say it's about the new ban. It's still a Muslim ban. It's still a refugee ban. It still does nothing to enhance our national security. DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, recently said that. They said that banning people based on the country they come from does not enhance security. So this clearly isn't the reason for this ban. And it still causes needless suffering for people for refugees who are already approved to come here. This is a program where we actually invite some of the most vulnerable people actually who were just like us, teachers, lawyers, doctors, farmers, who had to flee their country and leave everything behind because of war and security. They had the rug pulled out from under them by their government or by others in their country and couldn't remain safely where they were, so they fled. This is the history of the world. People have done this throughout history. And since the founding of this country, we have welcomed them. And today we're saying no. We invite refugees because we have determined already that they need to be relocated or reunited with their families who are already here. They go through extensive screenings. You've all heard about this by now. They are the most thoroughly vetted people who come to our country and probably that go to any country. Our refugee program is so secure. They go through all that. And like I said, when they left their countries, they had the rug pulled out from under them. They lost their homes, their friends, their jobs, everything that they knew and the life that they loved. And we're doing it again for no reason. There's talk of that this is just a 120-day ban. It's really not a 120-day ban because of the way the refugee program works, because of all the security and medical clearances and interviews that refugees have to complete. Again, fewer than 1% of all refugees in the world will ever get a chance to be resettled. And half of that will come to the U.S., so it's a really tiny fraction. It's a permanent ban because with all of these security clearances that expire, there's only a 2-month window where refugees can travel before they have to start their screenings again. So during this 120 days, many will have to restart the clock with years more of waiting. We're talking about people, again, that we've invited to come to participate in the program and start their lives here. I'll also say something about the 50,000, the reduction. The prior administration had set the goal for this year at 110,000, which many of us still thought was too low. This administration has lowered that number to 50,000 refugees for the year. We're already at about 39,000 for the fiscal year. This is the lowest target set since the refugee program began in 1980. So given the scope of this crisis that we're in, this world refugee crisis, where we have more displaced than at any time in recorded history, for us to reduce the number to the lowest number is, it's just a rejection of all of our responsibility that we have in this world. Our allies in the Middle East and elsewhere are hosting millions of refugees. Jordan, Turkey, it's in Africa as well, Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda. They're doing the best they can to host these refugees. In Jordan, for example, they have 2 shifts of kids going to school in public school. They have so many kids that are coming to their public schools that they have to operate a day shift and a night shift. We have the capacity to help. We can take thousands more refugees. Why should these countries, just because they're in the neighborhood, have to shoulder all of this responsibility when this is what we do and what we do well? We do it better probably than any country in the world. Refugees revitalize our communities. They add to our country in many ways. I think you can see by the array of people behind us the contributions of diverse people to our country. And it's also, of course, the moral, responsible, humane, and American thing to do. I will note we are a Jewish organization. The first ban was signed on Holocaust Remembrance Day, and we took that personally. This one was signed right before the Jewish holiday of Purim, which celebrates Queen Esther, who took a stand against injustice and persecution. And we will be doing the same. We will keep fighting against these policies that hurt people for no reason and that don't make us safe. Thank you all for your support, and we will...
Thank you so much. That was Melanie Nezar with Highest. I call on Jim Winkler with the National Council of Churches in Christ in the United States of America.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm Jim Winkler, and today I'm here also as part of Religions for Peace. Leaders of many, many different faiths gathered today here in Washington, D.C. to coordinate and intensify efforts to protect religious minorities and religious freedom, to advocate for refugees, asylum seekers, and immigrants, and to defend and care for creation. We will be, I'm also here as President and General Secretary of the National Council of Churches, comprised of 38 member communions, more than 30 million Christians, and more than 100,000 local congregations across the country. Orthodox, African American, mainline Protestant, peace churches, and other churches comprise the National Council. And over the past 70 years, we have resettled in this country hundreds of thousands of refugees because that is our mandate from Scripture. And so I want to point out actually that I grew up in a local church that's still proud that out in the wake of World War II collected clothing, and blankets, and money to aid refugees displaced by World War II in Europe and Asia. And when I was in high school, that local church resettled a refugee family from Vietnam and one from Chile. We didn't care whether they had escaped from communism or fascism. We knew that the right thing to do was to help them find a new home. 36 times, at least, the Torah says to welcome the stranger. Now, Mr. Trump grew up in one of our congregations, First Presbyterian Church of Jamaica, Queens, and he was married in another of our congregations, Marble Collegiate Church. He should know full well what these and many other churches and what Holy Scripture has to say about welcoming the stranger. Let's read from Deuteronomy, the 10th chapter, verses 18 and 19. For the Lord your God executes justice for the orphan and the widow, and who loves strangers, providing them food and clothing. You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Let us remember who we are and our heritage. So I want to say to Mr. Trump today, echoing the words more than 30 years ago of President Ronald Reagan, who went to Berlin and at the wall challenged Gorbachev to tear it down. Well, Mr. Trump, I want to say to you today, don't build the wall with our neighbors from Mexico. Don't deport the millions of immigrants in this country who are our neighbors and who we love and cherish. Don't ban refugees who are seeking a better life and who need our help in coming into the country. Rescind this order.
Amen to that. Now I call on Rameez Abid, who's founder and president of the Arab American Institute USA. Mr. Abid.
I want to look at this because it is not a Muslim ban. It's much worse. It is a sheer act of cruelty at the most vulnerable people in our world today. There was a tweet the president did a while back saying that he wasn't singling out Muslims. He was singling out people from Syria and Libya, and he listed the countries in order. And my response to that was, duh. These are the most vulnerable people on earth. These are countries that have been spoiled by war, whose people are fleeing because of fear, who are putting their kids on their backs and risking everything to find security. That's why the refugees, when you shut the door on them, it's not their religion that's at issue. It is an act of cruelty at the people who are hurting most on our planet. You say no. That's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. Yes, it targets Muslims, and they've been covered with this one because they left out the sort of religion preference language. But we know what that means. We know what their intent is, and as previous speakers have said, they make no bones about it. They have different language in this one. They say that they'll do an ideological test. They'll ask questions about what you believe in and what you don't believe in. We've already seen that begin to happen at airports, even with legal permanent residents being asked those kinds of questions, or having their laptops screened, or having their phones and being forced to give their passwords so that they can be downloaded, so they can get a sense of who you are and what you believe in. And so it's cruel. It's also intrusive. And it's also arbitrary. Because the notion that we'll let in people who are loving America, what does that mean for a Customs Border Patrol person? Who's going to make that determination that we let you in or don't let you in? How does that work? There is no standard set. There should be no standard set other than need, vulnerability, or a job, or a family. It preys on fear. That's what it's about. I mean, the very top line of the thing is to protect Americans. But we know from statistics that we've already been given, no one from these 7 countries, now 6 countries, has committed an act of terrorism in America. That's not what this is about. It is not about immigrants creating acts of violence, because contrary to what the president said, well, actually almost everything is contrary to what the president said. Radicalized in America. And so it's cruel, it's arbitrary, it's discriminatory. There's the story. I'm living on my own. This is safe and secure. It has to do with this campaign. Melanie said, I believe people have to go get makes sense because it's great. I watch their own country. But as long as he has that bully pulpit and is able to issue orders of this sort and use his platform as president to spread division, to spread fear, to issue executive orders that create this climate in America, we'll see people challenging others. We'll see people shot because people are sick, or an Indian happen to be Arab or Muslim, etc. I mean, we're not dealing here with the smartest folks on earth. We're dealing here with fear. We're dealing here with people that are being provoked into fear and incitement by the President of the United States. It is dangerous. So pleased that we're here today, but we need to be bigger. We've got to be bigger. Muslims are an existential threat to America. That's what it is. That's what we've got to be clear about as we speak to people. This is not who we are. We can do so much better.
Sorry.
Hey everybody. My name is Sarah Heinreich. I'm running United Religion Initiative as the North American Coordinator. We are the world's largest grassroots interfaith peace-building network with member organizations in 97 countries around the world, with nearly 100 member organizations in the United States alone. These organizations work in grassroots communities, bring together diverse faith leaders like you see standing behind today to work together on social projects. Before I came here today, I got on the phone. This organization is called Interfaith Works. They operate in Syracuse, New York. They resettle refugees in that community, primarily to unite families who are divided by global crisis. And I spoke to one of their staff members, she began crying. She said, "This is my message for the administration. Get a heart. This is not who we are as a country. This is not who we are as a people. Refugees are people, human beings fleeing war and violence. We are ready to welcome them. It is the right thing to do." In her community, refugees are a vital part of society. In the past 4 years, 9 refugee students have graduated as valedictorian of the area's 5 high schools. Refugees are our nation's future doctors, lawyers, teachers, moms, and dads. In the United Religions Initiative, one of our founding principles is that we give and receive hospitality. Welcoming the stranger is a value held dear by many, if not all, religions, spiritual expressions, and indigenous traditions. I'm in Washington, D.C. this week as part of a gathering of religious leaders from all over the country. We have come together to affirm our commitment to protecting refugees, asylum seekers, immigrants, religious minorities, and religious freedom. Together, over 60 high-level national organizations have declared that our faiths teach us that each and every person is endowed with dignity and value, regardless of their country of origin, faith, race, or any other marker of identity. This includes refugees and immigrants targeted by this executive order. We stand here today in solidarity with the communities targeted by this order, particularly the American Muslim community and other religious minorities that have been victims in recent days of increased discrimination and hate crimes. We stand here together to build bridges, not walls.
Our final speaker is the Reverend Dr. Earl Trent, Chairman of the Church World Service Board of Directors and Senior Pastor of Florida Avenue Baptist Church. Reverend.
Thank you. As Chairman of the Board of Church World Service, Church World Service represents 37 denominations, mainline denominations, African American denominations. We are one of the 9 agencies that helps to resettle refugees. So when we see this executive order, we know it will grind to a halt the entire refugee settlement program. Is it good? Refugees, the average stay of a refugee in a refugee camp is 20 years. The vetting process takes 2 years. By pulling this back by saying 120 days, we're going to keep this in abeyance. It means many families are going to have to start all over. Their vetting is time sensitive. As you've heard from my fellow speakers, we are concerned. Not only are we concerned, we're here gathered together as a people of faith. Let me just say for one moment something that's not on script. I want to remind not only this administration, but the people that support him, that this is not our nation. What you are doing is giving us a nation of fear, a nation of hate. You ran on a platform of hate, divisiveness, fear. You said you were going to make America great. Well, great nations do not huddle in fear. Great nations do not dismiss the poor, the tired, the refugee, the immigrant. We are a great nation because we are a nation of displaced persons. We have all come from some place, some voluntary, some involuntary. We've all been displaced. But this nation is great when we cater to the least of them. We are great when we let the light of our compassion show. We are to be a light to the world. And right now, we're darkness. Build walls. We huddle in fear. We want to build up our military. That's not great. A great nation and a great people live by faith. We are here as a community of faith, and faith casts out all fear. That's why we're here. We stand against fear. We stand against hatred. We stand against divisiveness. We stand against cruelty and meanness. We stand for America, a great nation that is going to become greater as we continue to fight in nonviolent ways to put forth a message that the world needs to hear. We are caring people. We are compassionate people. We are going to take our resources and help one another and ban no one, because we know that we are greater when we all work together, when we pray together, when we sing together, when we raise our families together. And it's only together, facing with faith and not fear, that we will be the nation that we're supposed to be. God bless you.
Sometimes I've learned we got to be simple in our message. So let's just conclude by saying real clear what we want. What is it we want? No ban, no wall. Say it loud and say it clear. No ban, no wall. 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 Hopefully they heard us inside those 6 walls and inside. Thank you so much for coming up today.